Hi, this is Marcia Wilson. I've been doing art for years and years. I used to do wood carvings. Here's a mantle clock I made. And coming up is a clock in the shape of a mermaid out of wood. These two clocks were made of wood. Now I decided to make one out of clay. Here I am starting out to shape some brown stoneware clay, the way I would shape a mantle clock in wood. I soon discover it's different working in clay from working in wood. I'm working at the Clay Art Center in Port Chester, New York. A wonderful place, by the way. I got started working here because my boyfriend had cataract surgery as well as a stroke and couldn't drive for a short while. So I drove him to work at Mount Vernon, New York. And to pass the rest of the day, I signed up for independent study at the Clay Art Center in Port Chester. What a fabulous place. But in all the years that have transpired since I worked in clay, I forgot a lot of things, and I don't really know what I'm doing. So here I am working with a lump of brown stoneware clay, which I have not bothered to wedge. Who cares about wedging? I just took the clay and started carving away with a wooden tool or whatever I had handy. I think I'm doing just about everything incorrectly, but ignorance is bliss, as they say. The whole point is I'm enjoying myself, and I'm feeling very excited because I know this is going to be a fabulous piece. But God has other plans. You'll see, this becomes a total failure at the end. But here I am carving away. The Clay Art Center has classes and private spaces for established artists and independent study for people who've had at least 1 year experience in clay classes at the Art Center. They made an exception for me because I was stranded while waiting for my boyfriend every day, and they took pity on me. But what a wonderful experience it's turned out to be. So here I am, having the time of my life. I'm working much smaller than I used to in wood. When I made these mantle clocks in wood, they were pretty big. This one seems big, but it turns out to be really small, like the size of a table clock or something. It's shocking how much clay shrinks when it gets fired, and this is brown stoneware clay that will be fired at cone 10, which is very hot, thousands of degrees hot. Anyway, clay's a big fun change for me because I'm old now. I'm 74 years old, and you better believe it's a pain in the neck to work in wood because I don't like to go to my basement in the first place, and second of all, when I work upstairs I get sawdust all over the house. You have to use power tools when you work in wood, and you don't have to do that in clay. So clay is a very convenient medium for old ladies like me. As you see, I'm not copying from anything. Once again, I'm just making this shape up out of my head, which is what I like to do. I like to keep working until it comes alive, meaning until I can see the personality of it. And this little lady's coming alive. I like her very much. The nice thing about working at a center like this is I'm not working alone. And number two, I have a schedule. Since the boyfriend goes to work at the same time every day, he now drives me as far as Mount Vernon, and then I take over the car and drive to Port Chester. When he needs the car during the day, I take the train from Mount Vernon to Port Chester. And in 2011, it was only $3 round trip for a senior citizen. Of course, the price goes up in 2012 like everything else. Anyway, can you see how relaxing it is to work in clay? totally cool, isn't it? I'm really liking this. See that mug next to me? I didn't do that mug. It was made by somebody named Rose, who was disappointed in the glaze, so she gave it to me. Isn't that cool? I make tea, cocoa, or coffee in it because they have one of those those hot water dispensers, and I just add instant whatever to it. Sometimes other people come for independent study, but often I'm alone, and that's fine too. If I'm really alone, I can turn on the radio, but usually there's a class on the other side of that shelf you see in the background. I sure hit pay dirt when I found this place. Too bad it's so far away from my home. I live in New Jersey, and Port Chester, New York is 25 miles northeast of me. But what are you going to do? Maybe I should shorten this video, because clay is a very time-consuming thing. When it's finished, I'm going to put a clockwork inside, just the way I did with the wood, so it'll actually be able to tell time. I'm very pleased with myself. I've made the hole for the clockwork to stick out bigger than it actually needs to be, because I know the clay is going to shrink. Of course, I didn't count on this piece cracking down the middle, which is what happened, and I didn't count on using the wrong kind of glaze. There are all kinds of glazes for clay, and the Clay Art Center in Port Chester, New York has a terrific variety of them. For this one, I picked a glaze called Charlie D. White. And it's nice for some things, but it came out very blotchy on this carving. I should have used something like buttermilk, or there's another one that's a matte, stony white matte. I should have used that. That would have been better. I can't wait to try this again. And I didn't let the clay dry enough. Do you know, if there's any moisture in the clay, any water, once it's getting fired, when it gets to the point where water turns into steam, you know, after water boils, it turns to steam, any little moisture inside the clay is going to cry to get out. And when it comes out, it's going to crack the clay or explode it. And in this case, I had hollowed out the underneath side of this figure, but I didn't hollow it enough in the area where her upper arm is. That's where it cracked, between her arm and her hip, right along her torso there. And that's the part I should have hollowed out more. Too little, too late wise. But since the glaze looked crappy anyway, who cares? And the whole point about life is really to have a good time while you're doing it. See my hands all working away here? I'm a pretty happy camper. I got the idea of this mantle clock from, you know, those funny old mantle clocks from the Victorian days when they had clocks in the stomachs of people and you could win them at carnivals. It's like a cheap, kitschy kind of thing. That amuses me. And since I think life is amusing, I like to do amusing sculptures. So that was my idea. And as I said, I'm working in clay instead of wood, which is a fun change, but I have to figure it out so I get a little better than I am here. And we're getting to the end of this video. This is the only video I did of me working on this mantle clock, so the very end will be still photographs of how it how it ended up, and of course the debacle of how it cracked in the firing. I epoxied it together at the very end, but the glaze was so crummy, it didn't end up being very good. But I'll figure it out next time. I think the wiser way to do it maybe is to build hollow forms, like start with a hollow form, start with cylinders and cones and build like that. But I never did anything the right way. It might have worked out my way if I had let it dry longer. Maybe I should have left it for a month or two, not just a week or two, to dry out. Anyway, she's a pretty cute little lady when she lasted, and even though she's broken, I might just paint her in oil paints and put a clock in her and see how it goes. I just, I'm fond of my little sculptures. And this is a good design, a good idea of mine. I must say, I think it's original with me. But what do I know? See, look at here I am all happy about it. I'm posing behind her. And there's the clockwork in front of it. You see it? It was that black thing with the stick hanging out. You can buy them any place on the internet. These are side views of the clock before it got fired, before it got ruined, because, see, there's my name on the back, which says should say age 74. Okay, so now here's the stuff after fired. See how ugly it looks, all mottled? Yeah, it's kind of cute, though. Looks like a salt glaze. And in the background are 3 of my other pieces. Only the lady on the horse worked out. All the rest were failures. If you go back and look at that little girl, her one arm broke off. See the cracks underneath? Ha ha ha. My error. What else is new? But she's cute. I like all my sculptures, even when they're failures, they're cute. So here we are. Say goodbye to the clock, epoxied together. See that big long crack? Goodbye, everybody.